Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. We're back for episode 2. Fans casting. We're here. We're doing the giant-sized X-Men. Ladies and gentlemen, Ewan's back. Welcome, Ewan.
Good to be back. I love this. I love this so much.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I won't lie. When I put it in Trips chat, being like, "You want to do villains or you want to do giant size?" I was kind of hoping you said villains because there was a couple of my giant sized ones. I was like, I don't have runners up for them, or I don't care that much. And now
I'm really,
like, I don't
more
care.
than anything. I'm excited to the point where we get after the villains and we can kind of just do general X-Men characters. I think that's where we gets fun, where we can start looking at your rogues, your gambits, your
I've got a fun gambit.
I've got a fun gambit and a rogue. I've got two back-to-back fun characters.
Yeah, I've got a fun rogue as well. When I go further down, the only ones I got cast in my list of just other various ones, I just have Gambit and Rogue. Well, I've got Henry Cavill as Captain Britain, but I don't think they're ever going to touch the Captain Britain core.
We'd be looking at I guess we'd be doing like Gambit, Rogue, Kitty Pryde, Sunspot, maybe Blink I quite like Blink. I think Blink's fun.
I've got Gambit, Rogue, Kitty, Jubilee. I don't know why I've got Bishop here. Like Bishop is fine.
Bishop's good to do.
Yeah.
Who was some Emma? Oh no, she'll come up in villains.
Yeah, I've got Psylocke, I've got Cable, and then I've got Captain Britain as well. But I don't know if I touch the Captain Britain core. Oh yeah,
maybe. But we all know that I think there's only one option for Dazzler, and we all know who that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a future video.
We'll get to that.
So, for those who are unaware, the giant-sized X-Men, well, in the 70s, basically, people stopped buying X-Men comics, so they kind of stopped the X-Men for a while. And then Cyclops just showed up at the X-Mansion and was like, Charles, we've been away for 3 years because no one bought the comics. And I have no powers and they're out there somewhere. Go help. So Charles ran around the Earth and recruited a bunch of other mutants. In this list, there are some real A-listers. There's a couple in there that were swings and misses.
Yeah.
There's one in particular. We'll get to him.
But I would argue two in particular. I would argue that there's two.
Yeah, and that's a shame because when we get to one I think there is.
Yeah. I think the thing is, one of them's just kind of dumb and incompetent and very useless. The other one is like a fun idea, but he leaves for the most out of pocket, out of nowhere, random reason that I've ever witnessed.
And I think with that particular one, and in fact, fuck it, we'll get to that in a minute because I don't want to bog us down before we start off. But we'll start off with the Queen. We'll start off with Storm.
Right.
For those
before
unaware,
we get into this, before we get into this, I've sort of got a kind of overall idea of how I would like the giant-sized X-Men to kind of formulate in this universe. Obviously, we've seen variations of the X-Men. This is this is the sort of space that I want them to function in. So I feel like they're very much giant-sized X-Men. It is not a permanent fixture. It's not a recurring franchise. It is very much a plot point. At most, you want to do one film. You don't need to keep them around beyond that. By the end of the one film, the majority of these the majority of these guys should be officially X-Men. This film can't end without the majority of these guys being it's a plot device.
I think for me as well, for me anyway, I think the idea of we get a film with the cast that we know with the mutants that we spoke about last time. We get a film with the first class to sort of set up the idea, and then something happens. Maybe we have a second film that ends on a cliffhanger, and then we have this movie where Charles basically goes, "Shit, I gotta do something right now." Yeah. And then we can then integrate, people like a Storm or from a
creative perspective, this is really it is like a plot device so that you can kind of insert your major players in the most quick and effective way.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what it was in the comics.
Yeah. If you're going to go in with
to get comics back on shelves with new mutants and new characters that would spice the franchise up.
Going first, bring your first class in to set up the idea, and then sell some tickets after that. Worry about bringing in those guys a bit later on. But the other thing that I've got noted is that I think because that it's not a permanent fixture, I think guys dynamic together, it doesn't need to be smooth and entirely functional. I don't think they need to have mega great chemistry on screen together. I think more importantly for this team, the characters need to be capable individually. I think is the most important part. Like this is a rescue mission. Realistically, that is what the plot of this is. It's a rescue mission, and we need to believe that, if Xavier's got Nightcrawler in, we need to believe that Nightcrawler is going to be useful to a rescue mission. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
we need to believe.
I think as well, like you say, with these characters specifically, they all have powers that they all have powers that lend themselves to the rescue mission. And they all feel in their own right. All of these characters all do feel, or have the potential to all feel, powerful and useful enough to be brought in specifically as a break glass in case of emergency, because that's where all of these characters are when Charles comes to them in the book.
Kind of
all of these characters are doing their own thing and happy doing their own thing.
It's very much like an Amanda Waller Suicide Squad type of dynamic where it's like at the start, like you've got your characters and they serve a specific purpose that is literally like the plan for this film. Whatever plan Xavier sends, like whatever mission these guys go on, the plan should be laid out at the start. We go, right, if these guys are in adverse weather conditions, that's why we brought Storm here. If these guys need to get out of enclosed spaces, that's why Nightcrawler's here. Make that very clear at the start and make sure that we're aware that why these guys have been picked. I think it's easy to, like, in the mainline X, it's very easy for you to go, these are the characters that we're working with. This is how they're going to function. And, like, the tension comes from, like, how these guys are going to solve the problem using their own skill sets, what they've got between them. Whereas I think with Giant Sized, it very much is that Suicide Squad crack team dynamic where it's like, we know how they're going to solve the issue. We just need to make, like, the tension comes from, is any of it going to go wrong?
Oh, 100%. And I think, like, for me, personally, it feels very like I was thinking about James Gunn's The Suicide Squad recently, and I was thinking about how, like, every single member of that team, well, the team that, like, follow on all kind of, like, play a role in that actual story. And that's one of the things we think we
it's
see
almost
here.
like
I say, all of these characters need to feel capable. And, like, I'm okay with Iceman feeling out of his depth in, like, a first class movie because he's, in my eyes, he's probably like 17 to 22. Whereas everyone here,
these guys need to be fairly competent.
Yeah. So,
or at least maybe I'm not too fussed if they're 100% like completely competent. You can have some maybe dumb ones, but they need to feel like they're all there for a reason, and you could reasonably believe that they would be picked.
And there's one for me who I have a couple of I have one younger suggestion who to me could feel like we bring him in as the younger one here, and Charles is basically putting the trust in him because of his specific power set. We'll get to that as we go on.
In terms of the majority of mine, I think it's quite an even, like, age split. I think there's some older ones or some younger ones. I'm saying they all need to go directly into the main X-Men team, but they should definitely be within, like, half of them need to at least go into the X-Men team. Half of them need to go into whatever younger X-Men team that you're working with. My last requirement, well, it's not necessarily a requirement, it's just something funny I would like to see, is, like, at some point we should definitely bring light to the fact that this is a team where you've got some of the most A-list X-Men ever created, but then at the same time have some just complete, like, totally obscure guys. Like, I think we need to, I think we should draw attention to that. Maybe have a scene where they get back from a mission and all the students are there waiting to clap them and greet them back, and everyone kind of goes over to Wolverine and Storm, asks for an autograph, but then just ignore kind of the other two. I think something like that would be that's in terms of my, like, laying it out for you.
Yeah. So I think with this, I feel like I don't have as much to say. I don't have, like, my bullet points. I don't have my specific traits. I have some things that I want, but I think for some of these, we'll just kind of talk about them first. But let's start.
I think real place for me here, I think the majority of my picks mostly look the part. And I think this is the first time. So in the first class one, I didn't really have anything controversial. I was just like, this is the right guy. This is the first time where I've got a few controversial takes where it's like, okay, like I want to adjust the way characters function within this world. And like, there's certain things. There's a gender swap or two in here.
I think for me, and I know one of the gender swaps, and I'm a big fan of that. I think for me, because I think people that I've looked at, I think I've put a lot of thought into my A-listers, but even into something like, for me, I didn't look at much more than for Nightcrawler, who we'll get to. I just wanted someone who feels quiet. And I think as long as we have that sort of quiet base, we can build off that over time. I don't think Nightcrawler is someone that you need to have the characterization spot on right at the start, especially for a giant-sized movie when ideally the plot would be saving the ones we've already met and established. Whereas I think for starting the X-Men universe, you need Scott and Jean and Bobby to be nailed on, you know?
I think at least in this film, a character like Nightcrawler, I want to see a more badass side to him. I don't want kind of like, we'll get into it a bit more, but like there is a version of Nightcrawler that I would rather see this time that is very different to the way that I've seen Nightcrawler in the past.
We'll crack on. We'll start with Storm. For those who don't know, Storm is the daughter of an African witch priest and the daughter of an African-American photographer. She feels regal. She feels royal. When we meet her in giant size, she's basically being worshipped as a god by her followers, by the village, by this African country. She becomes the Queen of Wakanda many times in many different comics. She needs to feel regal, graceful. She needs to have a presence. I don't think for me height's a big issue, but I do think she needs to like have a bit of a stature. She needs to be someone as well that you can't really take your eyes off. I don't think Storm should ever blend into the background. And I know that sometimes in the other films she does, and maybe that's because Fox were scared of, a big white comic costume, which looks like, like a queen's gown. It may be that, but I also was never, apart from the scenes in some of those older movies when Halle Berry's agent was like, "You've fucking got Halle Berry here. I don't know if you remember that, and I'm her agent, so sort that out." Apart from those scenes, I never really got that sense that like she was this larger than life personality. So for me, those are the things I've looked at. And one thing that I thought as well, one thing that I kind of took into consideration, I've seen a lot of sort of conversations online in the past couple of years anyway about portraying Storm as a dark-skinned woman, because both of the Storms we've had so far have been fairly lighter-skinned, and in the comics she's always sort of portrayed as a darker skin. So I looked at a few sort of lighter-skinned actors, but there is one who is just so perfect. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. I would have been grappling with myself to not cast her if she wasn't dark-skinned, but she is, so I'm fine. I probably would have cast her regardless, even if I wasn't trying to just look at dark-skinned actors, but I did, but it also helped because my pick is a dark-skinned actor.
Yeah. So for me, Storm's a weird one for me. I've always found Storm myself to be like just an inherently boring character with like inherently boring powers. Really? I don't think I just think as a power set, it's just kind of like it's very. It's very situational. Storm.
I've kind of been the other way, because for me, a lot of the time with Storm, one of the things that like I always found it hard when I was like reading X-Men comics and stuff as a kid. I always like kind of found it hard to care about other characters. See, especially if she was on a mission with like, I don't know, if she's on a mission with like Beast and like, I don't know, with the exception of like the heavy hitters like a Wolverine or someone, she always just felt better. Like, to me, the way I always read it and the way I always saw her was that she was just better. And maybe this has been in recent years when everyone's a fucking Omega level mutant now. That playing field has kind of been leveled. But, like, see if she goes on a mission if she went on a mission with, like, Nightcrawler and Kitty Pryde, and Kitty Pryde and Nightcrawler, like, jumping through walls and stuff, and she is creating a thunderstorm indoors to kill 9 men with bolts of lightning. I always felt like, and I also think that worked really well with the fact she's always been portrayed as like a high priestess or a queen and things like that.
So for me, Storm, because I just think weather powers are very situational, but I think that's kind of a good
That's
place
fair.
to be because it means that you can kind of to do Storm well. I think you've got to make sure she feels useful and make sure that her powers, like when you're showing off Storm's powers, make sure she's. I want to see creative uses of Storm's powers. I don't just want to see blowing gust of wind to slow something down. I want to see like properly creative uses of that. I also think Storm kind of almost outranks Jean Grey as like the main kind of mother figure of the whole group when Storm comes in. I think when Storm comes in, I see Jean Grey as more of like, I think by the time Storm's there, I see Jean Grey more as just like Scott's weird girlfriend that's going through some stuff.
And I think as well, like with Jean and the motherly thing, because she is not really a mother, but like clones of hers had children and kept children from different timelines come there. Jean, when it comes to being the mother of the group, has so much of her own shit going on as being a mother, but not really. I get that.
So the other thing I've got here is if there's any character that kind of fits a more teacher role, like the sort of like person you want around the school, a bit of a professor. I think Storm's kind of that one. She needs to have a good relationship with the younger cast is a big thing.
Yeah.
Like just not even in this film, but like throughout the whole series, I think Storm needs to be one of the ones that like the younger kids very much can depend on. I think she operates she almost operates on the X-Men as someone that's as effective as like Scott Summers at making decisions and being like taking up and stepping that leader role up. But I think the difference between her and Scott is that she's obviously less impulsive and she's a bit more considerate. I think she's very much like the anti-Scott. Both of them are great leaders, and he's just a bit more impulsive, whereas she's more patient and considered. And it should feel as though if she wants to, she can outrank Scott in terms of like the team dynamic. I feel like she is that person that says, "I know you're in charge, but sit down, let me sort of take over."
Sorry,
and I feel like
I just realized I forgot to put someone on my runners up list, and I'm looking for it for her now. She's not honestly, to be perfectly honest, she doesn't win. That's fine. I can't find her name.
But no,
she was on the new Buffy show. If you watch that new Buffy show on Netflix, I think she played like a voodoo priestess or something. I saw a couple clips on Twitter, and I was like, she seems cool.
For me, Storm is that one person that can kind of outrank Scott and will happily do that if needs be, but he has enough respect for him and enough sort of grace about herself that she will guide him rather than take over. So that's my kind of Storm breakdown. I think if we get into the casting, I know you'll probably have a few. I've only got one.
So I've got a couple of runners up here. So I'll go for the runners up that I kind of like the least to the most. So the one I think I like the least is Jamie Lawson. She played the mayor in the Batman. She played Bella Real in the Batman. I've seen her in a few other things that off the top of my head I can't remember.
Shout, actually. That's okay.
I do quite like her. She does the sort of like take control of the situation thing, especially at the end of the Batman. I feel I can see like a bit of Storm there, but she doesn't really have the regal thing. She's not sort of above. She's kind of like
she seems very like down to earth. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I
can't see her teaching. I think with Storm, you've got to be able to see them at the front of a classroom.
Yeah. Then my second runner up there, Janelle Monáe. I just really like Janelle Monáe. I've never seen her like be super serious in anything, but I really like Janelle Monáe. Like she was always going to be there. One of my picks a couple of years ago when I was thinking about this was Michaela Cole, but then she was in Black Panther, the second Black Panther, as one of Dora Milaje, and like I can't remember the name of her character, but had quite an extensive arc in that movie. So I remember when I heard she got cast, I was like, holy shit, maybe it's her. It's not. Then I can't remember what I've seen this actor in. I probably should have looked at this, but she has been in. What has she been in? So she was in the Book of Clarence recently. Apparently she was in Titans as well. Anna Diop. So she was born in Senegal.
Yes. So Anna Diop is my pick. Is Anna Diop.
Okay. Yeah. So she was born in Senegal as well, which I think lends to it.
Yeah.
Anna Diop, from the things I've seen her in, has been really good. However, the one thing for me, one thing I also forgot to mention is Storm has a bit of a backstory about losing her parents. And it's kind of like the Wanda Pietro thing from WandaVision. There was like an earthquake, her house collapsed on her, and because of that, she has crippling claustrophobia and sometimes suffers major panic attacks. So I think my Storm has to feel like on a knife edge and can do that smaller thing and feel very close and claustrophobic. Now, have you seen the movie Queen and Slim?
No.
So I'll give you a rundown of the plot. Basically, it's about these two people. They go on a Tinder date. It's not going well, and he's like, "Okay, cool, whatever. I'll just drive you home." You know, we went on a date. It didn't work out. That's fine. That's whatever. And as he's driving her home, it's two black characters on a date, and they get pulled over by a cop who basically like racially profiles them. And when they're out in the middle of the winter, he like drags them out of the car, like, and won't let them go and grab their jackets, and they're just stood there, you know, freezing. And then the cop, I think when he goes up to kind of do that, it's Daniel Kaluuya as well. He goes up to kind of get a bit of heat in him. The cop's like, "Whoa, what are you fucking moving for?" And reaches for the gun, and it becomes a thing. A fight breaks out, and Slim ends up killing the cop in self-defense, and the pair of them just then, off of a Tinder date that goes wrong, like go on the run across America, and it becomes like a whole thing. And Queen in that movie basically goes through this arc of "I am better than you" to "I am so fucking terrified," like that, and it's Jodie Turner-Smith.
Right. Okay.
So for me, Queen and Slim kind of feels like an audition tape for Storm.
Right. Yeah, no, so I've gone Anna Diop. I think my main things with her is in Titan, she is very much that kind of mature, older character. She's kind of like her dynamic with Brendan Thwaites, in that they're kind of very much the leaders, and I think you just basically replicate that dynamic in the X-Men and have like Storm and Cyclops have the same relationship, and I think that works really well. She is that figure that like the younger guys talk to, but she's also that person that's like, okay, now we got to crack on, get to business. Like, what is your plan? Like, give us a plan. So
that's also very much what Jodie
I also think Anna Diop is kind of like in Titans, she's like very bougie. Like Starfire in that show is bougie as fuck. She's dripped out.
I've seen
and like what you were saying earlier about Storm having a presence, I don't think they necessarily have to go down the route of putting her in all white constantly, but
she needs to feel bigger. Yeah, she needs to feel.
Yeah, drip her out, man. Drip her out.
Yeah, 100%. So those are our picks. Anna Diop and Jodie Turner-Smith. Like I said, she's my runner-up number one. So I'm like, either of them, I'd feel good with. I say second, we go. Got the notes over here. I'm looking at my screen. Got the wrong side. We'll go from a nice Glasgow Celtic top here. Let's go for Banshee. Let's go for the big Irish boy.
Fun one.
So Banshee.
I'll let you give us the quick rundown.
Yeah. So the quick rundown on Banshee is kind of just he's Irish and charming and handsome.
Yes.
That's kind of it. He has a really funny power. Well, I think when you see it, the way it's like portrayed in the animated show, basically he can fly, but only if he screams. And there's like a clip from the animated show where he's like flying them across the sea and he's holding Wolverine, and Wolverine's just like that, like as they're flying. It's a very funny power visually. But I also think if we're not afraid to give him the big comic accurate costumes, like his costume is loud, like he's flashy and he's in your face, and his power's also like big and in your face. And then just like some of the things about him is he's, very Irish and like and handsome. He's kind of spoke about in the X-Men comics as like being like a big heartthrob, kind of the way that like Nightwing spoke about in DC is like Banshee's meant to feel like one of the most handsome people in not just X-Men but in Marvel. So for mine, I've looked at just young, handsome Irish boys, except I haven't, because in Generation X, which is one of my favorite X-Men runs, Banshee and Emma Frost, who has turned good because she turns good sometimes, are teachers. So sometimes Banshee is not a young Irish hunk. Sometimes Banshee is a teaching Irish hunk.
He's a bit of a Delph sometimes, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a bit of a Delph. He's either a nice, he's not either like. Listen, there's one very obvious pick, and he's obviously my pick here. He didn't get Johnny Storm, so he's here. We all know who it is, but if we go older, I have a couple picks for that too.
Okay, so this is the first controversial one for me. I told you there'd be a few like maybe controversial like character changes. Banshee's my first one, and I think this time I've gone with female Banshee. I don't think Banshee is a character where gender is a very important variable.
Like for me, I'm all okay with
obviously you were saying very handsome. very like kind of fuckboy-esque. I think that can be, you can do that with it. Like, I think just have, for me, an MCU Banshee, a female MCU Banshee is very just like extremely charismatic, fun to watch. Very much like the It Girl. You almost want her to be essentially the female Angel, except the difference between her and my version of Angel is that Angel's likable because he's dumb and you kind of laugh at him. Whereas Banshee's likable because she actually is charismatic and has a lot going for her. You know, you kind of want her to feel like the It Girl. She's not inept. She's like, you want Banshee to feel very capable and very reliable.
So for me, you kind of brought up gender swapping. I am so cool with gender swapping characters because originally my Professor X was gender swapped, and then Marvel had the audacity and the gall to waste Olivia Colman in Secret Invasion.
Yeah, big.
I don't think anyone that I had on my runners up list would have been better at that than Olivia Colman.
Do you know what? If you were talking like female Professor X, do you know who would have been fun if she wasn't already in Marvel? Tilda Swinton would have been fun.
Oh, 100%.
Tilda Swinton would be really fun. But anyway,
I remember a few years ago, my friend was like, "Would you not fuck with Meryl Streep as Professor X?" And I was like, "Give me that now," and put Charles Dance from Game of Thrones as Magneto. Put him in the helmet. Give me that.
So yeah, for me, Banshee I've gone female Banshee, very much the It Girl, very charismatic, very likable, very capable. Like, Banshee needs to feel really reliable. Banshee's not the sort of character that you need to do that much character development with. You can have Banshee as sort of one of the X-Men that's continuously, like, consistently there, consistently does the right thing, very reliable, doesn't need to take center stage, but is just kind of there to buff out the numbers and to consistently be around. I've also said, like, Banshee for me, I like younger Banshee. I like a Banshee on the younger side, and I want one because Banshee's a sort of character. He's been everywhere. He's done all sorts, and I'd like to replicate that and have the Banshee art to grow up and just kind of like go into all these different places. Maybe put Banshee on the Guardians of the Galaxy for a bit if you want it. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like,
so
move them around.
I say, I like the Generation X run when Banshee is a teacher. But I think one of the main reasons I've picked my younger Banshee is because then that allows us the scope for Banshee to then become the Generation X teaching Banshee. Yes. But we can have the fun young Banshee.
Yeah, in my notes, I've literally said Banshee can start on the younger side, but definitely the sort of character that you want to have as a teacher later down the line. So you need to make sure that we understand that they're capable.
Yeah.
But yeah, who's your guy?
So my runners up. My young runner-up is Aidan Turner. He's a handsome boy, young Irishman, been on some TV and things like that. Young, handsome man. Then my older Banshees, I've got two. I've got Donald Gleason, my favorite Gleason kid. I think he'd be good as like a teaching-aged Banshee. I also have Aidan Gillen, who was Littlefinger in Game of Thrones. I would like him as like a teacher, but I just kind of always see him as like really seedy because of love-hate and Game of Thrones. So I don't know how much I could get on board with him being the teacher age Banshee. But like, listen, we're casting an Irish hunk. And I hate that I've just went, who's the handsome Irishman? But I like really, really think Paul Mescal could be a lot of fun here. I think he would have been a lot more fun as a Johnny Storm.
If I was going to go male Banshee, if I was going male Banshee, Paul Mescal is my number one. If I'm going male Banshee,
it's in this case, but like it's easy for a reason.
And he looks the part. He's spot on. Like, he's not that look. So for me, obviously, I've gone with women. I had two potential options here. Now, my B option, who I didn't go with, I was going to go with Saoirse Ronan.
Oh, you didn't? You told me you had. Have you had a change
I was like, she's the most Irish actress there is. Like, you think of Irish actress, you think Saoirse Ronan. I think she looks the part. If you can imagine a female Banshee, she probably looks the part. Instead, I've gone for someone else. I've actually not gone with an Irish actor this time. I've gone with someone that I would maybe consider as Irish adjacent.
So is it a Scottish actor?
No, I think she's English, to be honest, but
you
she
fuck.
is.
I'm editing this bit out. I'm editing this out. I'm editing this out. You take the six counties, and now you take Banshee.
She's in a film called Baghead, and Baghead is the worst horror film I've ever seen. But it's not to her fault, by the way. She's like the best one in it. But Baghead is like, it's set in Ireland essentially, so that just made me think like, yeah, she can do Ireland. Sweet. That's what this is based on, and the fact that I think she's an up and coming actress. She also is one that kind of looks the part. If you were gonna say someone that like a female Banshee, someone that's a little bit cooler, very British vibe, I've gone with Freya Allen. She was in the Witcher series.
I don't like and your last qualifier for Banshee was very British vibe. But like, I'm gonna be honest, right? I see the vision. She was also in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. However,
yes,
she has a very small English head, whereas Saoirse Ronan has a big Irish head. And I think the Irish people in the cinema would see that a mile off. No, I like her. She's really good in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I can maybe get on board.
Where are her parents from?
Yeah, that's what I need.
Her parents she's from Oxford. She's from Oxford. Never mind.
But
nah, she's a good show. And just like,
no,
if we don't look, if we're casting a non-ginger Jean Grey, we can cast a non-Irish Banshee. I think it's same vibe.
That one's gone right to the ballroom, by the way.
Let's just send it off.
We'll move on.
But no, I like Freya Allen. I think she looks the part. So
no, she's
and she's like got the vibe of it. She's got like a really like you would enjoy her being around.
I've got her. If I look down further, I've got her in another one of my castings, but I didn't look up.
I think I know where you've gone with it. Yeah, I know
where. Where do you think? It's not X-Men.
I'm going to assume. Oh, is it not X-Men?
It's for a different franchise.
Oh, you're all right. You're all right.
Yeah. So I just have.
You would have watched her in. I thought you were going to say Emma Frost.
No. I've
got a fun pick for Emma Frost. I've got.
She's down in like my list of names I've not narrowed down yet for when I do my Bat Family casting for Oracle, but it literally just says. It just says
Barbara Gordon.
Yeah, it just says New Planet of the Apes girl. Look up name when I'm out of the cinema, and I didn't look her name up when I got out of the cinema.
She would be like a fun Barbara Gordon. I could see that.
Yeah. And
or like a Kate
Cassidy. That, forget that. Oh,
Kate
possibly.
Cassidy, who I'm thinking of?
Kate Kane.
Kate Kane.
No, I don't know. There's too many.
Who's the blonde
Kate
one?
Catherine Kanes.
There's a blonde one, right?
There's
blonde.
To be very honest,
Robin.
I've not read. Oh,
Stephanie Brown. Stephanie Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought. Oh, that would be fun too. Let's just get it out of the way. We've got a couple of. We've got one A-lister. I think Banshee's a fun B-lister. Has a bit of a shout. Let's just go to our jobbers here. So first of all, let's talk about Thunderbird. Now, Thunderbird.
Can I introduce Thunderbird actually? Because I found a Quora page that perfectly just does the job.
Okay. Please do.
Okay, so for me, at least, let me preface this. For me, I'm very much under the impression that Thunderbird is possibly the most useless, boring X-Men character to ever exist. Completely incompetent, completely useless. Boring powers, I think. So Thunderbird basically has what can only be described as Native American powers, which is he's big and strong and a bit of a tracker.
He can track and hunt better than others, but they're apparently his powers.
Yeah. So his powers are that he's big and strong and he can track and hunt, which between Wolverine and Cyclops, who are and Colossus, who are also on this team, that renders him basically useless here. Not only I just the super soldier vibe of like skill set is just boring one anyway. We see it far too common, and for like a for like X-Men, where the VFX artists are going to be excited to do something like weird and wonderful and like create these incredible visuals to bring this to life. I think
I think as well, like for the VFX artists, one of the big things I really want is I want like the power signatures. I want everything Gambit throws to be purple. I want everything Jean does to be like that sort of reddy pink. And he's just a strong dude who is maybe like they're over there.
Yeah, he's Captain Native America is what this guy is. That is what this guy is. But anyway, so I found this Quora page that kind of I was doing a bit of research, and it was called "Who are the most useless X-Men characters?" Now, I'll start reading this. Giant-sized X-Men #1 was cool for a lot of reasons. It introduced more mutants that would later join the X-Men alongside the original 5, including Nightcrawler, Colossus, Storm, and Wolverine. Then there was Thunderbird and Sunfire. Obviously, not off to a good start with that. Basically, they came about in a time where Marvel just wanted to incorporate more diversity, and that's why none of the characters on the team are all American. They're all kind of American slash. And in this case,
wait, none of these characters are American. Logan's Canadian.
All American, no.
Well,
yeah, Wolverine's Canadian.
And then you've got. Well, I mean, I say none of these characters are American. Obviously, Thunderbird's Native American, but none of them are.
Well,
like
you've got
1973 white American.
Yeah, you don't have like the all-American. You don't have like the all-American kind of.
Yeah.
Blonde hair, blue eyes type guy here.
Yeah, we got an Irish. We got an Irish one. We got a German one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically what you've got here is they wanted to make more inclusive X-Men, and the way they did that was by making these two new characters who had very tasteful outfits, might I just add. This was the Native American outfit. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, there it is.
And then you've also got the Japanese character in this case is literally just wearing the Japanese flag.
It's wearing the reason flag as well.
So to kind of break down how useless these guys really are, we need to go back how this team was invented. So the reason that this whole team, as Jake said, was invented is because like the main X-Men team, it gets captured by Crowder, right? And it's worth mentioning now that Sunfire is pretty anti-America. His mum and probably grandfather died by radiation poisoning due to the Hiroshima bomb. So understandably, he kind of resents the US. And, he does help Professor X when the X-Men ask. He refuses to become a member of the team. And that panel is one of my favorite panels in all of comics because it's absolutely just out of nowhere. It's completely obscene. But onto Thunderbird.
I'll flash it up.
Go on.
I'll flash it.
I'll send you that. Onto Thunderbird. So obviously I've prefaced this most useless character X-Men has ever seen. And now X-Men 94 and 95 chronicled the new character's journey to the Colorado Rockies, where they went to foil some international extortion scheme. And it sounds dead boring, but it gets quite exciting towards the end when said villain kind of takes off on this small aircraft. Now Thunderbird hops on and furiously kind of pounding away at it. Manages to get on top of the plane. And then he kind of takes off with the plane. And as he's kind of furiously pounding away at it, you've got Professor X kind of in his ear like, no, get off the airplane. Like, this is not going to end well. And Thunderbird has a response to that. And his response to that is essentially, I'm a loser, but I need to show you now. I need to prove to you that I am the warrior of the Apache and that I will not be messed with. And literally in the next panel, he explodes and dies immediately on impact. So, the guy's just completely incompetent, essentially, is what you gather from that.
This does lead to some fun when later on his brother, who, unsurprisingly, has all the same powers, but he's just better at them all, basically becomes angry at Xavier and the X-Men and vows to sort of foil Xavier and the X-Men, and then eventually he's talked into being a good guy. Then he adopts the Thunderbird name for a bit before changing to Warpath. So what I have here is I have two actors here, one to play Thunderbird and then a younger actor to play Warpath maybe later, because I don't think we introduced them. You don't think we also introduced Warpath here. So I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm not overly familiar with a lot of sort of Native American actors, and then
Yeah.
all the ones I like, I don't want to see them be Thunderbird and just die. And I had the
Yeah.
idea, what if we just have one guy and then just always call him Thunderbird, and he's basically just Warpath. But I really, 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 really like a younger Native American actor, so and would prefer him over someone like a Tatanka Means or a Martin Sensmeyer, who I both really like. So I went here for Thunderbird. I went for Forrest Goodluck. I think he was in like some Twilights and stuff like that. He's just kind of been in doing like vague action things. So let's get Forrest Goodluck a big MCU bag, and then more importantly, Forrest Goodluck. I'm so sorry for just then going. You're here because I don't want to get an actor I really like in this movie to die. So I'm sorry, bro. Get that bag and live good. After that, for me, in 2 or 3 films, then we bring in Warpath, who would be his younger brother, his younger angry brother. And oh, if only there was a show about a young, angry, like disaffected Native American youth. Oh, Reservation Dogs? DeFaro Wunatai come in and be Warpath in 5-6 years. Editing Jake here, as you can tell by all of the things. When I was looking back at this and I was editing it, I realised I said that Forrest Goodluck was like an old Twilight alum. He's not. He's quite a young actor who I actually quite like. Not as much as DeFaro Wunatai, so I still stand by get him in for a movie and then let DeFaro Wunatai play Warpath down the line. But Forrest Goodluck was Michael in How to Blow Up a Pipeline. He was in The Revenant. He's been in a couple other things. I'm gonna be so real. I don't know who the fuck I was thinking about. I don't. I when I was looking through the Native American actors that I know and that I like, I thought of a Twilight alum at some point. I saw he'd been in some Twilight and some light action things, and I was like, yeah, cool, him. And I guess in my mind, when I guess last night when I was reading off my list, I completely forgot that I was like, oh shit, that kid from How to Blow Up a Pipeline, I quite like him more than I like this guy I've just seen do like some background action and things like that. So I'm very, very sorry, Forrest Goodluck, that I said that you were one of the Twilight guys when you're not. And I'm also very, very sorry that that you're dying in this series after one movie, because DeFaro Wunatai is still my Warpath. But I love you, bro. Forrest Goodluck, you're sick. You're a cool guy. Anyway, back to the video.
Okay, so for me, I've gone down the same kind of thought path. Obviously, you mentioned your first guy was kind of a Twilight alumni. Now, I was thinking Warpath in the past, Boo Boo Stewart, another Twilight alumni. So I was thinking, he's kind of in that walk in Twilight. So let's kind of look into that and see who's there. And then I thought, it hit me. Obviously, we're saying like Thunderbird is useless and incompetent, and basically he's going to be here to be a comedy character. He is in this film to get killed in the most hilarious way possible. Whether they do it like the comics, whether he's this really obnoxious, preachy guy that annoys Wolverine till the point where he gets murdered, have this guy just literally function as kind of the side characters from James Gunn's Suicide Squad. He doesn't even need to survive the first half of this film. Never mind the whole thing. He is cannon fodder. He is a complete comedy character. So I thought...
What if it just goes out like Pete Davidson in the Suicide Squad?
Literally, I'm thinking Native American guy, comedy actor. I don't know how Native American he is. I don't know if this is wrong to say, but he's in that Twilight group. So I'm going to put him there. Taylor Lautner.
I like that. I also think it's someone who'll get people into seats. And then...
Exactly. And because like have him be that Pete Davidson where he's like gets people in the seats, he's there and he's funny for a minute, and then you can get to business when he's gone.
I also really like Taylor Lautner. Not enough that I would want him in these films for a long time, but I do think he's a lot of fun in other things I've seen him in. So I like that.
And I think, and he is fun. Like he seems like a funny guy. He seems like not too self-serious. Like I think he's the sort of guy that would absolutely come into like a Deadpool film and be there for like 20 minutes in a Deadpool film. I think this is a similar vibe.
So I like how we've both went for Thunderbird there. We've both went, who's someone we don't feel overly attached to being in these films forever. But like I say, I also really like DeFaro Wunatai from Reservation Dogs. So maybe then have him as Warpath in a few years. But from one giant-sized jobber to the next, we've got to talk about Sunfire. Now, we very briefly touched on Sunfire, and this is what I was going to say at the start of the video. I think Sunfire is someone whose power set lends itself to being incredibly interesting, and I think as a character lends itself to being incredibly interesting. I think the idea of someone who is still you could say his family are still reeling from the effects of the bombings on Hiroshima from in World War II, but he comes here to kind of prove that he comes to this team to prove that he is the best. And in terms of just base power, Sunfire is the one who's probably like the most powerful at the start.
Yeah,
like
he's
in terms of like he can heat plasma to
he's really like
because
like he's the only one here that can shoot things, and to me that's like enough to be like, okay, this is going to be your powerhouse. I think
it's a shame that he's just never really been used or portrayed as that. So because of that, I've went for an actor I really, really like. In my world, he's not just brought in so Marvel at the time could go, look, we got a Japanese guy in the comics. With his powers as powerful as that, I brought in someone I quite like who could make enough of a presence out of a character who realistically could and should make a big presence, but also it's not a character that I think general audiences are going to be clamoring to be there. So I've gotten someone I like who I think could serve a fun role in this film, and maybe die at the end, but after being in it for a good bit.
Yeah,
I don't have any runners up. I just have one guy.
For me, Sunfire is very much like, I don't think you need to be as mean to him. I don't think you have to be as mean to him as you do Thunderbird. I think you very much got to make it clear that Thunderbird's the incompetent one that needs to die. But I also don't think Sunfire should be able to stick around, mainly for logistical reasons of like realistically lay down the line. We know we're getting so at this point in the MCU, we're going to have had Human Torch by this point. Also, you can assume that in the end we're going to get Pyro and that we're going to get Sunspot.
Yeah.
So you can have him here.
Have a good showing.
Yeah.
And then
kill him. After maybe kill him or maybe just write him out in a fun way. But like this is another one where I wouldn't mind if they just did the comic thing. If they literally just followed the comics and he was like they kind of extend the offer to him and then just kind of out of nowhere, we don't get to hear anything about it. He's just like, no, never speak to me again. Suck your mum, like, and flies out. Because that's literally the final panel of that comic. He's just like, don't ever speak to me again.
Yeah.
Like,
or maybe he goes, maybe let's just say for plot reasons, Charles has say we're doing like a sort of, we're doing like a Days of Future Past Trask sort of, he's experimenting on mutants to make Sentinels or whatever, and he's captured the First Class. Say that's why they bring them in. Sunfire gets to burn an American government facility to the ground, and then he goes, well, I feel like I got even on a personal level. See you later.
Yeah, but I think you can't keep him around for long because I think Sunspot and Pyro are infinitely better characters, and I think like if you want, you can't have Sunfire be good. You can't have Sunfire be on the X-Men while Sunspot's around.
I also think like Sunfire is like more he in terms of his power set is more powerful and can do more damage than people who are more interesting on a personal level. So because of that, we kind of just want him to be here for a bit and then dip, and then we can have the less powerful ones in the same power set who are more interesting.
Yeah. He should I think he definitely survives, but I don't think. But he's absolutely not on the X-Men by the end of this. He maybe just goes home and like, I've got even, like I'm done sort of thing. Like, but I don't need to see him become. I would happily take him turning evil, but I don't think you can have him be evil at the same time as Pyro existing. That doesn't work for me, and nor does him being on the X-Men at the same time as Sunspot existing. So I think you've got to like really balance out how quickly you get rid of him.
For me, I'm more than happy to have Sunfire be a one film arc. Hence why I've picked an actor I really like. My Sunfire is Andrew Koji.
I was gonna go there, but I think he's maybe a bit older than I would have liked.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of names from like that Alice in Borderland show been thrown about. But I really like Andrew Koji.
Yeah, I like him. So for me, Sunfire is like that whole thing at the end just really says to me, this guy is just your smart ass. Like he is not here to make friends. He's here to just fucking get a job done, get the bag, get some personal gain, and go home. Like he does not care about any of this. He doesn't want it. So when I think of like, also, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I'm mega familiar with lots of Asian actors. I'm not. So I have gone with a guy who was in Power Rangers. He was the Black Ranger in the Power Rangers live action movie, Ludi Lin.
Oh,
in that film, he's kind of the more.
I love
kind of
film.
the more like.
I love that.
He's
film
kind of the more
so
like.
Much.
Yeah. He's kind of the like of the guys in that film. He's very much like the smart ass. Like I don't want to be here. I'm too cool for this. I think. Give him a bigger role, like because the thing is as well. After that film, he was kind of the guy that came out of that film with everyone expecting him to be the one that kind of lands the bigger roles. Obviously, Dacre Montgomery smashed it after that, and we knew that we expected that he was the lead. But I think Dylan was expected to do really well, and we've just not seen much of him since. I think there's maybe a year or two where he's in quite a few things, and we've just not seen him get to the heights of that.
Yeah, man, I could talk about that movie all day. That's like genuinely one of. I fucking love that movie like so much. Yeah, I rock with that. Yeah, fuck it. Let's just go Colossus.
I think we might be on the same lines of Colossus. You know, I think there's a fairly good chance we're on the same place.
Let's just very quickly get some things out the way about Colossus because I'm almost certain we have the same.
So okay, let me just lay it out for you. Right, I've got 2 notes. Right.
Mm-hmm.
First note: big dumb Colossus is always the best Colossus. Fact, just fact.
I don't know. I like my big softy Colossus who likes to just paint.
Yeah, but like big, exactly. Big dumb soft Colossus, like friendly giant. Like,
yeah.
My second note is that Deadpool Colossus is really good, and you can basically just do that again, but maybe make the comedy a bit more peacemaker. And that's where I'm going with my casting is Peacemaker. I've got John Cena. He is Colossus, dude.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, wait, have we not gone to the same place?
No. So for me, with it, for me, Colossus is like, you know that way we talked about like how one of the big things for Beast is Beast feels like he could snap at any minute, but he doesn't because he wants to like retain his humanity. Colossus, on the other hand, doesn't feel like he can get to that level because he doesn't want to get to that level. Like Colossus loves to read and to paint, and he loves music and theater and things like that. So he never feels like that. Whenever he gets in a fight, it always feels very much like in the first Deadpool when he's fighting Gina Carano.
Where he's like, it's like they come to it and he's like, I've got to do this. I'm just like,
it's and I always really like that about Colossus. He's always like a big softy. And like,
he's very much like that gentle giant kind of character.
Yeah. So for me, one thing as well one of the things about the Deadpool movies that like I really like the characterization of him in the Deadpool movies. I guess that spoils it. Yeah. I think this is Stefan Kapicic's role to lose. I think there's got to be someone who blows Marvel's fucking minds for them not to just go to Stefan Kapic and just go, you want to do this again? Because also, look at him. He's like 6'5", big Russian bear man. Like he looks
still alive. That's a question.
I love that.
I just had that thought.
I think for me, I just think Stefan Kapic is like it's his role to lose, and I think he does it very well. And I think like one of the things for it as well that I would want in this is. I want it to be able to be switched off. That's one thing they didn't really do in Deadpool is that he was always big metal man. I think he should be a big, huge guy. And Stefan Kapic's like 6'4", I think. And then he gets taller again when he goes metal. And I think it's his role to lose. I think he done it like almost perfect in the Deadpool movies, especially the first one. So for me, I'm just like, if he wants it, he can have it.
Yeah, I like big metal John Cena. There's also like an action figure where it's John. Have you seen that? There's like an action figure version of John Cena where he's like silver, and I'm like, that's just Colossus. Just type in there must be like just type in John Cena Colossus, and there's like it'll come up.
Let me look up silver John Cena action figure. Oh yeah, that's fair. I'm gonna
like that's him. So I say big dumb John Cena. I have him literally like similar humor to Peacemaker as well, where he's just like really literal. Like I think that would be a really funny way to take this. Is like he's just Peacemaker. Like because when I remember watching the Suicide Squad for the first time, and there was something about it. Watching John Cena, where I was like, that reminds me of. For some reason, it just reminded me of Colossus.
Fair.
I was like, there's something about it where he's like, it's that big because in
Punk Piesic as a person, smiling and looking huge, and everything. When I look at that, I'm like, that's Colossus.
Yeah, no, I think Dolph Lundgren as well. If I was going to go older, Dolph Lundgren's a fucking shout. He's massive. Look at him.
Yeah, right. I love him.
But so now John Cena will always be my Colossus.
That's fair. So now we'll go on to the last two A-listers here. The last two A-listers on the list. So let's talk about Nightcrawler. Kurt Wagner he's one thing I think is very important for me is I need him to feel younger than my Mystique because Mystique is his mother. He's a little blue freak man with a tail, and I think he's probably to me the most important X-Man because he is the thesis of it right there. Because every other person we've mentioned so far, with the exception of Beast when he turns big and blue, can pass as human, whereas Nightcrawler can't. And because of that, when we meet Nightcrawler in giant sized, he's literally being chased with the mob with pitchforks, and he has just basically accepted his fate and goes to die, essentially.
Yeah. And
I always really like that. Like, I think for me, he's got to feel like sort of quiet and contemplative. And a big part of his characterization is like, when he joined the circus as a circus freak and then like found Catholicism and that's a whole thing. He found some mutant religion on Krakoa in the last however many years in the comics because when all the mutants were on Krakoa and the kids were like, hey, you can die and just come back, and they were all killing each other for fun because they know they would come back. He was like the only one that had a problem with it in the comics, and he was like, this is kind of fucked up that we're doing this. So I think he's got to have like a strong moral compass. He's got to like just look that sort of gaunt and skinny like way.
Yeah, he needs to be like Twink. You want Twink Nightcrawler. You really do need you need like a Twink Nightcrawler.
And I think like, don't get me wrong, I'm going to be perfectly honest. See the Alan Cumming portrayal. You've got a huge uphill battle there. Huge uphill battle.
For me, Nightcrawler is one of the few, like possibly the only X-Men in any of them that I can hand on heart say the writers have never done him dirty. I think he's good. Alan Cumming's good as him. I think Cody Smith-McPhee works is one of the better parts of those films. He doesn't have much to do in them.
I'm getting through the Fox X-Men movies. I just watched Days of Future Past for the first time last night, which I really enjoyed. However, there was a bit. I don't know if did I send you the voice message about the bit in Days of Future Past that stopped me in my fucking tracks? Like I had to switch it off for a few minutes.
Which bit?
So there's a bit. It's when they go to break. Spoilers for a 10-year-old movie. It's before they go to break Magneto out of the Pentagon, and they're on the tour. And there's a little snot-nosed kid who's like, "Where's the toilet, lady? I need to go pee." And she's like, "Well, good for you." And it's something along the lines of, "Good news for you, because when the Pentagon was built, segregation was a thing. There's twice as many toilets in the building." And it's in the background. It's as Wolverine and that cut off. And I heard it. I'm like, what the fuck? What do you mean? Why did you just drop that as a bit of background noise? That is the most fucking insane thing that's ever been said in any film of all time. And they just drop that. It's like, good news. Because of segregation, you can piss in twice as many places. It is insane. It's fucking mental.
For me, Nightcrawler is one of them that's never, I don't think, ever been done dirty by the writers. Alan Cumming's good. Cody Smith-McPhee is... Cody Smith-McPhee, he doesn't have...
The point of that is, I can't speak to Cody Smith-McPhee, but I'm working my way through it, and I've heard he's good.
Yeah. But, he doesn't have a lot to do, but I think the characterization is quite spot on. Now, my thing with Nightcrawler is Nightcrawler by far, I know for every single person in the world, Nightcrawler is the coolest fucking X-Men character. He's so cool. Like the idea of just this little fucking blue guy that's like Assassin's Creed vibes. You can just fucking like, mate, that's so
like,
cool.
It's 3 fingers that can like just, it's basically claw hands.
So
like, he's so sick. I love Nightcrawler.
This might be a controversial take, but I think for once, I want to see Nightcrawler be cool and fucking own it. I'm sick, I'm not sick of it because they did a good job, but like, we've now seen twice like a whiny kind of very guilty Nightcrawler. It's like kind of a bit of a whinge, and the characters almost feel like they've got to look out for him because he's kind of sad all the time. I want this Nightcrawler I want everyone to be looking out for him, but not because he's sad and guilty. I want everyone to be looking out for him because even they know on the X-Men that he is the coolest motherfucking X-Men there. Like, I want it to be clear that even the other characters in this universe think he's fucking sick. And I think
for me, a lot of my Nightcrawlers are kind of, I have one who's like kind of that sort of more traditional way that he's portrayed, especially in the movies, is where he's kind of like quiet and reserved. But I have my pick as a Nightcrawler who's younger, who could grow into something as the films go on.
Yeah. I think at least in the beginning, I think I mentioned it earlier, but like for me, like at least in the beginning, I want Nightcrawler that's fucking fun to watch, doing all these cool tricks and stuff. Like, explore his relationship with his faith and how that affects the way he fights and how he, handles certain things and his relationship with humanity. But, like, make him a little bit emo. Like, make him a badass that's fun to watch.
I think for me as well, you mentioned like the way to explore the relationship with his faith is now it's not, very little things work in this movie. Very little things work in Wonder Woman 1984, 88, whatever the fucking year it is. Not a lot works in that movie. Not like almost nothing works in that movie. But there's a scene in the White House where Diana's fighting the Secret Service, and she's like specifically on the defensive. She's using the lasso as like a shield. Yes. She's like making people like. There's a bit where a guy's like flying through the air, and she lassos a chair to pull it back to catch him. Like, she's fighting very defensive, and she's fighting specifically not to injure these people. She needs to get through for plot reasons, and she needs to make her way through the White House, so she has to fight the Secret Service. But she's never on the offensive with it, and I think it will be a very fun contrast to have Wolverine just fucking killing people, and Nightcrawler specifically, maybe even like saving people from being killed by Wolverine when they're already out and they're already down, flashing in to grab them and pull them out the way and just be like, that's not why we're here.
I definitely do like obviously non-lethal is the way to go about Nightcrawler, but I do think early on, I feel like that's something we should see him learn throughout. I think early on, have him just be this fun, reckless guy that doesn't think about these consequences. Have him be a fucking badass, and have him realize that, okay, because, like the whole faith debate of him, like, oh, this isn't the way I should be. This isn't the way I should be as a good Christian. I don't think you can really. I can't believe that unless you've seen him being kick-ass and fucking people up. Do you know what I mean? With Nightcrawler, I want to see a period in his life where he kicks ass and asks questions later.
Yeah.
Give me a reason to believe that he would get to a point where he starts asking bigger questions. Give him make me believe that he's done fucked up stuff and like he's guilty for that. I want to see early on, just have fun with Nightcrawler, make him a badass. Later on, if you want to like make him a bit more of a pacifist, a bit more of a neutral, I think that's a fun thing. Like, you can do that later on, but I definitely want to see at least once in a film Nightcrawler be just a badass. Like, I want to see him just fucking going ham, just throwing people into the air, like doing that stuff. I want to see it at least once, because that's, to people that are uneducated on like Nightcrawler and they don't understand the law, that's what people kind of think Nightcrawler is. And I think it would be fun to explore that he, like, there's a reason why the idea of Nightcrawler is so badass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I want to believe, and yeah, a big thing for me is that, like I said earlier, like I want to all believe that everyone within this universe of the film thinks that he's cool as well.
Yeah.
And like, it's not just the audience, but like, I want to see like characters like Wolverine being like, "That's actually fucking cool. I wish I could do that."
Yeah. So, like I say, my
last thing,
Nightcrawler. Oh, on you go.
Last thing is he's another like little brother figure. I think he's similar to Bobby. I think eventually when they both join the X-Men, those two, I think Bobby, Drake, like Iceman and Nightcrawler would be your two like youngest, like they're the little brother sort of figures. I could imagine them just having a really good relationship, getting along really well, and kind of learning things off each other.
For me, I kind of originally started looking at kind of older Nightcrawlers all around the sort of same age as everyone else I've kind of looked at here. But then there was one actor who came to mind who is younger, and I just think from like the things, a couple of things I've seen him in, and then one thing he's kind of most known for, he very much screams Kurt. Now, hopefully, he can do a German accent because I've never heard him not do an American accent. But
I know where you're going. Listen, I'm going to the same place.
Fuck it, I'll go through my runners up.
This is one of my only ones with a B option. This is one of my own like castings with a B option.
Okay, so my runners up. I've seen a lot of people mention Matthias Schweighöfer. He was in Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead and then Army of Thieves. Just a thoroughly German, skinny, gaunt-looking man. And apparently he's a lot of fun in those movies. So a lot of people have said that's Nightcrawler. I've not seen Army of the Dead or Army of Thieves or anything else that he's in, so I can't speak to that. But he is a name that I've seen mentioned a lot, so I just thought I'd throw that in here. And from looking at him, he looks the part, but he's not a pick. I really like, if we go a little bit older, I really like Colin Morgan from BBC's Merlin. Just a weird little freak man. Remember the Merlin show from like 2007?
I do actually. No, it's coming back.
Yeah, I like him. This is another guy who's just basically one of Hollywood's favorite guys to play little freak men. I just think he's too tall and too like broad for it. But Bill Skarsgård could be fun. I just don't think he's small enough. He's too big.
I think if he's gonna look like he does in Giant Sized, I think you can get away with Skarsgård. I think you do like big buff Nightcrawler in some circle. It depends like the aesthetic of the team. If they go for that big bulky, like if they go for the cable-y aesthetic, you can do. I think the odds are they're gonna do like a skinny twink boy.
Yeah, I think we mentioned him last week, Chalamet, but he's probably never going to do superhero movies. And to be honest, I'm not that arsed about seeing Chalamet in superhero movies. I don't know if I get it yet.
I'll expand on that in a minute.
Another one, I just think he's a little bit too old. Kind of the same with Colin Morgan. I just think he just feels a little bit too old. I think Rami Malek could be fun here, but I think
that's another one. That was my B option, was Rami Malek.
Yeah, but my A, I think he could be fun, but he just feels a bit old. And because I want my Nightcrawler to like feel quite a bit younger than Steve. I've went for a young actor. I went for someone that I know as a child actor. Have you seen the Jonah Hill skateboard movie, mid-90s?
I've not.
So basically, kid who's the lead in that, Sonny Solich, he's kind of that quiet, contemplative sort of self, and then he comes out of his shell more and more and more as the movies go on. But the thing he's more famous for is playing Atreus in the new God of War games, which is also, he starts as quite shy, and then he becomes very like...
Oh, he looks the part. He really looks the part.
I think he's got the look, and I think he's got the range. He's shown that in mid-90s when he was only like 14, and he's shown that over, or maybe younger, maybe like 12 or 13, and like in his voice work over both of those God of War games, he
looks the part.
He really shows the ability to kind of go through all those emotions that I want with my Nightcrawler. And yeah, Sonny Solich is Nightcrawler for me.
So my A and B options are ones that you mentioned. I've also got a C option, but I'm going to keep him here because I think there's a better character for him to play, and I can't say too much about it because it also will like reveal another casting for another character. There's like there's like a duo of actors that play a duo of characters, and I think it works really well. And he's a potential Nightcrawler, but it's not. The option was Rami Malek. Like I said, I think if you're gonna go like not necessarily the older side, but if he's gonna be like in range with the rest of the like main X-Men mid-30s, I think Rami Malek is the pick. The only thing I think you get, obviously, I've said I want a more kick-ass, like fun Nightcrawler to watch. I think Rami Malek is gonna do. If you get Rami Malek, you're more likely to have another like kind of Alan Cumming. I think that's what you would get from a Rami Malek. My A option is another one that you mentioned. I've gone Chalamet, you know.
Yeah,
and
I like it.
I'm very aware that he's like, I'm very aware that he's like far too cool for big franchise superhero films. But for me, it just is a case of like he looks the part. And if you look at what he's doing in June 1 and 2, like look at one he's doing, like he's got the charisma and the kind of worldview and the kind of understanding of people and the emotional intelligence in June 1 that I think would be really fun. Like that I think Nightcrawler needs to have regardless. But then you see him in June 2 and he's a bit more ruthless. He's a bit kick-ass. And like I said, I want a ruthless kind of Nightcrawler for a bit. And I think that like if you blend them together, you would have like a really fun Nightcrawler. My other thing with LMA is obviously, like I said, he's going to be a hard one to get. I doubt he'll want to do it. But think about it, like Nightcrawler, like I've said, everyone in the world knows Nightcrawler's the coolest X-Men. Surely that you can convince Chalamet, like, your mates have done it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's mates with Oscar Isaac. Oscar Isaac's done it a few times. Do you know what I mean? He's mates with Florence Pugh. She's currently doing it. She's in the worst one of these. Like,
thoroughly unfair to any. That's unfair to people who were not in Secret Invasion.
No, but like Florence Pugh is the other, like one of those actors, just like Timothée Chalamet, that you would assume is too cool for something like this, and she's done it and was in the worst one of them. So like, he's got mates that have done it. They like, and it would be so fun. And he's like, not only that, but he will be getting to play the best one, like universally known as the coolest X-Men character.
Yeah,
you're basically guaranteeing, like you're basically like he can't come out of that, he can't come out of that bad. So, I mean, he's guaranteed to come out of that well. It's like the cameos 100%. In Deadpool. It's like the cameos in Deadpool. Obviously, I know it's reasons I won't go into too much, but like I was speaking to someone, we were saying, how have they managed to get certain people back for this film? And then we kind of realized, well, realistically, the reason for that is they'll give them enough money, and like it doesn't matter how good or bad their films were back in the early 2000s. Like, they're going to come out better off. Like, they're not going to come out looking bad. Like, they're going to come out and people are going to go, do you know what? X actor from X superhero film in the 2000s is in this. That's fucking funny. I don't care how good or bad that film was. That's fucking sick that he's back. And I think Chalamet's got a really good chance here to just... This is a low-risk role.
Yeah.
This is really 100%. Low risk. Like, just 100%. Come in, look cool for a bit, and have fun doing it. Like, it's low risk, and you're gonna earn so much. So I think for that specific character, you can convince him.
So now, let's go to the big boy. What can we say about Wolverine that's not been said a million times? The most iconic X-Man, the most famous X-Man. I would say probably due in large part to just the absolute perfect casting with Hugh Jackman. And I think whoever comes on to be Wolverine, it's an absolutely huge task in front of them.
Do you know what? An
absolutely huge task.
I'm going to say something controversial.
Mm-hmm.
I like Jackman as Wolverine. I've grown up with him just like everyone else has. But I don't think he's as irreplaceable as
neither do I. Neither do I.
I don't think
there are a lot of actors who can do it very well.
I think
I
think he is sometimes, yes, I'll agree that sometimes he very much is the best part of those films. But there are other times where he's nowhere near the best part of those films, and he's just kind of a player there. And the reason he's so important in those films is because the films made him important, right? He's not like, but in films like, I don't think Hugh Jackman's irreplaceable. Like, I think he's like, he did a good job. I don't think it's like Robert Downey Jr. level irreplaceable, where like he's done a good job. I think, he's done a good job, but I don't think the role's not finished. You don't you don't need to retire the shirt post Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, and I think for me, everyone who's like, it is huge shoes to fill, but I think for me, you characterize him different from how he was characterized as Jackman, and I also think one of the things as well for me, and maybe maybe I'm just saying this as a card carrying short king. I don't want my Wolverine to feel like a fucking huge monster. I want him to feel the way Wolverine feels in the comics. I want him to fight low to the ground, and I want him to fight, sort of hard and fast. And I don't want him to feel like this imposing figure. I've looked at exclusively short actors.
I think, so I think I do agree that he should like have that kind of low center of gravity, but I don't necessarily think he needs to be a short man. I just think he needs to be a bit more. I think he needs to be willing to get down and dirty. I don't think, like you said, he shouldn't be losing over you. He should very much be playing around in the mud. My Wolverine this time around, I think there's so many ways that Jackman's is being characterized that you're always going to hit one of them. But I think my Wolverine is just a sick fuck. Like, I want this Wolverine to just... This guy is... Yes, he's on the X-Men and he's around, but I feel like they need to kind of explain that Wolverine's on the X-Men because he's forced himself there. He's not there because anyone wants him there. This guy's a sick fuck. He do whatever it takes to get his goals. He will go behind the rest of the team's back. He will do whatever it takes. And eventually, kind of, obviously, the X-Men grow to love him. Like, he's got obviously like a really good relationship with Storm and like Gambit. I can imagine he gets along quite well. But that takes a while. And I think what you need to really show is that Wolverine's going to do Wolverine's thing, and the rest of them have just learned to allow him.
Yeah, I think as well. One of the reasons, like I said, I was looking at sort of exclusively actors under 6 foot, is I also want a sort of like I want him to feel. Well, one, I really like the visual of Wolverine being short and, like I say, fighting down and dirty, and I think that's kind of easier to portray with a shorter actor. But I also think having an actor under 6 foot creates a nice visual disparity between his and Jackman's, because if we get another fucking 6'4", 6'5" muscle-clad freak, it's gonna be, we're just doing Jackman again. So for me, that's another reason I looked at shorter actors. So I have a couple of runners up here. I think so. I've not seen the show, but I've seen clips from that show Letterkenny about the hockey Canadian town. Jared Keeso from that is a name that people seem to throw about and seem to like. He's 5'10", kind of like broad, but not like shredded. I think he would be okay. I've not seen that show, but that's whatever. I then have an old Wolverine, a man who came to me and I was like, he would be perfect, but he's just too old. But I think with specifically his energy in one film, I think his energy in that, plus the fact he's 5'5", and we've heard him do the accents. Just, can you imagine if Stephen Graham brought the energy and the insanity from This Is England, and now he's got metal claws? I think he would be a lot of fun. I love Stephen Graham. But he's not my number one pick. I think if you want to do a fun little,
he looks like a 97. He looks like animated Wolverine as well. He's got like very similar face.
I think he's 50, so he's just aged out. He's 50, so he's aged out. But I think he could be a lot of fun here. I also think McAvoy could be a lot of fun here if he brings a lot of kind of what he brought.
I've never thought of that, but that's actually a big shout, you know.
Yeah, and McAvoy's 5'7". I've seen a lot of people throw Taron Egerton around. I like Taron Egerton, but for me, Taron Egerton is more of a Cyclops. I've always seen him as more of a Cyclops. My pick,
if I was going to go younger, Taron Egerton would be my guy. If I was going to go younger, I'd go Taron Egerton.
For me, I know it's obvious, and I know everyone says it, and I remember being like, I don't really see it. He's just a short actor who loves playing a little freak man. But then I saw that one photo of him from the set of I think it's Guns Akimbo, with his shaved head and his 9 abs, and he looks feral. And I swear to God, there's a reason so many people shout about Daniel Radcliffe, because everything I've seen him in, he just brings this fun, insane, like unpredictable energy. Everything I've seen him in post Harry Potter, rather, he brings this sort of fun, insane, detached, unpredictable energy. Even in something like The Lost Kingdom, where he's kind of portrayed as like the short man who can't really put up a fight, he still has this, can snap at any minute. And then in things like Guns Akimbo, he's fucking insane. I can't get past Daniel Radcliffe for Wolverine. I can't get past Daniel Radcliffe for Wolverine.
Okay, so like I said, kind of my requirements: sick fuck, morally ambiguous. Like, I don't want this Wolverine to be a saint. He should very much be like the one that does bad shit, and the rest of the team find out afterwards, and they're like, "Oh, like, did you need to do that?"
Yeah.
Backstabber, like, kind of will very much just go behind the rest of the team's back. Kind of that character that will do what he needs to do. And I think there's one man who's very relevant at the minute. There's a show that's just sort of been out at the minute that I think Carl Urban is literally Billy Butcher. Is literally, he is Wolverine. He is exactly how I've always imagined Wolverine. He meets all the requirements.
Yeah.
He looks exactly like him. The only issue with Carl Urban is if you're saying 50's too old, Carl Urban's definitely too old because he's about 55. But Carl Urban doesn't look 55.
Yeah, I think for me,
Carl Urban looks early 40s at the oldest. I think
he looks
you can
great.
get away with it. You can absolutely get away with it.
Another thing for me, I kind of looked at is like so Daniel Radcliffe's 35. Ideally, I want these characters to be around for the next sort of 15-ish years if they are able and willing to do that.
Can you have a 70-year-old Wolverine?
That's the thing. I don't know. That's one of the reasons I can account to Stephen Graham. Yeah,
sure. Logan, eh?
But that's one of the reasons I can account to Stephen Graham out, is I just think for me and for how long I kind of want this to be there. I don't know how much physicality an actor around about that age would be able to bring to the role. But I also everything I see Daniel Radcliffe in post Harry Potter, he's just playing a weird little guy, and I love that.
For me, like Carl Urban, like Billy Butcher is literally Wolverine in that show. Billy Butcher is just Wolverine without claws. It's like everything about him. It's his demeanor. It's the way that he speaks to the people around him. It's the way that he is just a backstabbing little cunt. He's like everything about that guy. It's that little grin that he does as well. Have you ever seen like the kind of Butcher grin? Yeah. Like when he does that little, it's so perfect. And I would love to see him just like, could you imagine this guy in a room with 10 like military guys? He just busts out that little smile, the claws pop out, and it's go time. Like, it's just a glorious idea. And especially like, obviously I've said Iceman. I want my Iceman is Jack Quaid, and I think that would be really fun to have like and obviously like a lot of these guys, like a lot of the younger, because Wolverine's so unhinged and he's so reckless and he just does not play by the rules. I think Wolverine's the sort of guy that I think a lot of the younger cast, a lot of those younger guys, Iceman, Nightcrawler, I think they would probably quite enjoy being around Wolverine, because it's such a difference from being around like the rules that Scott's got in place and like just the whole regimented thing. Like the best part, one of my favorite like parts of X2 is when Wolverine's kind of got to play babysitter with Iceman and Kitty Pryde and Pyro. Like I think that's such a fun dynamic of Wolverine's just this absolutely unhinged guy, but like of course the younger kids are gonna love being around that.
Yeah.
It really is like you know how they've all got that like, whole mutant and proud thing. I think Wolverine is a fun person to be around to give them that sense of like we can do cool shit, like we can have fun with our powers.
So that then brings it to the end. Then we yapped for longer than the last time somehow, but it's been fun. It's been good. Next time we're here, we'll talk about the villains, and then after that, we'll pick our favorite mutants who showed up at various points and talk about them too. But now it is time to wrap up. So Ewan, plug away, baby.
Plug away. You can find me on YouTube and TikTok at The Main Stage. We talk about festivals, music, all that good stuff. I'm on Twitter. My links are in both my Twitter and in my TikTok and YouTube. You can find it there. All you mainly need to know is the main stage on YouTube and TikTok.
Yeah, shout out the main stage. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for enjoying this content. I had a few good messages about this last one that was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.